Michael Kugelman is Deputy Director of the Wilson Center's Asia Program. He joins us today to discuss Pakistan's recent elections. Michael, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be back with you.
So I checked right before we began speaking, and we still don't have official word on the outcome, but Sharif's PMLN party has conceded to Imran Khan's party. What should we expect as far as an official confirmation of the vote?
Well, I mean, there will eventually be an official confirmation, but I think what's worrying me is that there have been a number of political parties, not just the PMLN party, but other parties that lost, that have rejected the results and have said that they're going to take to the streets and protest. So I think that, the coming days could be a bit tense, and if you talk about street protests in some countries, that's not a big deal, but we're talking about Pakistan, which is a pretty volatile place, and if you get large numbers of people in the streets, particularly those from some political parties that are very conservative and have some pretty toxic points of view, not really a good thing.
How serious do you take the allegations of vote rigging and other shenanigans?
I mean, the allegations of rigging on the day of the election are hard to comment on them because I wasn't there, but I think the more important thing is all these allegations of pre-election rigging, which basically suggests that there were efforts by the army to try to create a more favorable electoral environment for the PTI party. And it's true that there were a number of things that happened in the weeks before the election that raised suspicions, such as, for example, a number of arrests of PMLN leaders. The fact that there was a censorship of some TV stations that were seen to be providing too much coverage of the ruling party. You had dozens of parliamentarians that suddenly threw their allegiances to the PTI. So, a lot of things happening. If you had one incident like that here and there, no big deal. But the fact that it was happening so much, I think collectively that raises suspicion.
And how coordinated is that? Is the military the source of this manipulation?
Yes. I mean, that's basically it. And naturally, there would not be a smoking gun that the military is doing this, because this is how it functions in the years when the military does not hold direct power in Pakistan. And it's been 10 years since the military was running the show in Pakistan. It exerts its influence very covertly behind the scenes. It's not out front. So there's a lot of plausible deniability. But absolutely, given the legacy of the military, it gets involved in politics. And I think that's what's happening now.
So set me straight on this if I got it wrong, but my understanding is Imran Khan is the second consecutive civilian leader, first time or second time in the nation's history that's occurred where there hasn't been a military leader interspersed.
Yeah, correct. I mean, basically this election marks a second consecutive peaceful transfer of power, and together we're talking about 10 years of uninterrupted civilian rule.
So is he the military's choice based on the pre-election rigging?
There's a pretty large view that yes, that is the case, and Khan does have a very close relationship with the military. He didn't used to, but the thing about Pakistan is if you're a leader and you want to hold the uppermost echelon of power, you need to be close to the military because the military is the most powerful institution in the country.
So what are the prospects for? Let's just run with it and assume that he will be confirmed. If you think that's a safe bet at this stage?
Oh, I do. Absolutely. It's just a matter of time.
So what are the prospects for building a coalition government? He doesn't have the majority he needs.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that the PTI did get more votes than many, including me, expected. So it won't be as difficult as many had expected for him to fill out a coalition. So it won't be that difficult. I think they'll draw on some independents and maybe some smaller parties to fill out the coalition. So it'll be much stronger and less divided than many people would have expected. So I think that will not be difficult.
So that's the surprise, the amount of votes that the whole party got.
Yeah.
And tell us about the prime minister. We know he's a sports hero. The new prime minister, the prime minister-elect, I should say. Tell us about him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very fascinating character. I find him very contradictory. I mean, he's someone that, during his cricket days was very firmly ensconced in the West. He basically lived in England. He developed a reputation as a hard partying Casanova. And then soon after he retired, he reinvented himself as a conservative Islamist. Some believe that was purely political to appeal to the important constituencies in Pakistan. But now he's a pretty conservative, nationalist, virulently anti-American figure, I should say. And so that raises some questions as to how the U.S. will get along with Pakistan.
How do we even begin to gauge his sincerity? Will the proof be in the pudding? Do we just have to wait and see?
Right, and of course he's never held national power, so it's easier to sort of be in the sidelines, be in the opposition, be be an activist, be a populist, and hurl this very inflammatory anti-American rhetoric. But once you're in government, I think sometimes there's a tendency to tone things down. And Pakistan is a place where it's helpful politically to be anti-American. But I think that let's give him a chance. Let's see what happens when he's actually taking power.
Is he up for the job as far as just the technicalities of leadership, the fact that he has no real extensive government experience?
Yeah, this is a big question. He has no, his party ran a province in Pakistan over the last 5 years, but neither the party nor he have ever held national power. However, there are some other leaders in the party that have come over from other political parties and have been in government. For example, there's a top PTI leader who had been a Pakistani foreign minister in previous years.
And what about priorities? What do we know about where he will focus his attention initially?
Anti-corruption has always been his big thing.
But everybody says that, right?
Everybody says that, but he really seems to mean it in that for 22 years, the party's been around for 22 years. It's really been a single-issue party focused on corruption. And, he was vindicated, Imran Khan, because, Nawaz Sharif, former prime minister, was convicted on corruption charges. He's been in jail for the last few weeks. Khan laid out a very bold vision in a speech that he made the day after the election, which basically, it threw everything but the kitchen sink out there. He said, well, we're going to create more jobs, we're going to get rid of corruption, we're going to improve our relations with our neighbors. He said just about everything. But I think what's important about the speech is that it was conciliatory at a time where there's tremendous amounts of polarization in Pakistani politics. It was a very statesman-like speech, which a lot of people didn't expect for someone like him, who is given to some pretty inflammatory rhetoric.
But a word you do hear associated with him is charismatic.
Yes.
Does he have the personality to bring people together?
See, that's the thing. He's actually very divisive. It's ironic. He was a cricket hero and he united the country, but as a politician, he's very polarizing. So he clearly, he is a cult of personality in the sense that people are really attracted to him because of his charisma. But there are a lot of people in Pakistan that hate him. They think that he has a soft spot for terror. They, are very much against some of his views toward women, and some people don't think he's very smart. So he's a very divisive figure as a politician.
Do you see him as part of this larger global wave of these sort of cult-like figures?
Oh, I definitely think so. And a lot of people have compared him to President Trump. I'm not sure I agree completely on that, but absolutely he does project himself as sort of like a new face representing the real interest of the people. One of his big selling points is how he does not come from any of the dynastic political families in Pakistan, which is very unusual for a top leader not to have those dynastic connections. So yes, in that sense, he does seem to be or project himself as something different and new. But also a real populist in the mold of a Duterte or someone like that.
So rupee falling, inflation rising, trade gap widening. It sounds like he doesn't enter office with a great hand.
Yeah, no, he will be tested right away. He's not going to be able to coast. There's a looming economic crisis in Pakistan. You've got falling reserves and a major balance of payment crisis. So really in its first days in power, this new government is going to need to make some big decisions as to whether it goes to try to go to the IMF for a loan or whatnot. So yeah, the honeymoon period will be very brief for this new government.
What about improving relations with India? Is that something possible in the near term, or will he have to wait until India's elections next year?
See, the thing in Pakistan, the army really manages the portfolio on foreign affairs, including India. So he certainly has expressed a desire to try to improve relations with India, but I think the military may rein him back in because the military, in my view, doesn't want to go there, first of all. Secondly, the military tends to run the show on these things. So I imagine his focus, certainly initially, but down the road as well, his focus will be on these domestic issues.
Then those with the military in control of foreign affairs, essentially. What does that say as far as U.S.-Pakistani relations? You mentioned that he's had some fiery rhetoric, but so much of that can be just part of a campaign. What do we expect as far as behind the scenes versus what is said publicly?
Yeah, again, the dynamic is similar here. The military is going to call the shots on policy toward the U.S. I think that we should not overlook his troubling rhetoric. He's vowed to shoot down U.S. drones in Pakistan, things like that. But Khan himself last week, he said, and I quote, "It would be a bitter pill to swallow, but I would meet Donald Trump." So he's not ruling out the possibility if it were to come to that. But I just think the U.S.-Pakistan relationship is already in bad shape, that I don't think that this election and Khan coming to the fore is necessarily going to make it any worse, just because the tensions really revolve around the Trump administration and the Pakistani military military and its actions that the U.S. government does not like.
Michael, do you view this as a significant election in Pakistan's history, or is that too early to make that kind of judgment?
I mean, it's significant just because it represents a milestone and that we now have a decade of uninterrupted civilian rule. So symbolically, it's important, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's the most important election that's ever happened in Pakistan.
And for final thought is, forgive me for asking for a sort of a speculative question, but based on everything that you know, what is this guy's potential? Can he be a significant leader?
He wants to be. Can he be? I mean, he's got the ambition. He's got the confidence. But I really think that his inexperience and the power of the military could conspire to limit exactly what he can do. And if he tries to exert his independence too much, he could face the same fate as one of his predecessors, Nawaz Sharif. The military could severely undercut him and then try to get him covertly removed from power, so to speak.
Well, Michael, thank you for providing all these insights into Pakistan's pending new leader.
Thank you. Always a
Appreciate
pleasure.
you joining us.